All right, everybody. Sorry to interrupt Moonracer, as I know you love it as much as I do, but we will start that from the top after we have a discussion with the man himself. Kevin Max is on the telephone with us. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Kevin Max?
I'm exceptionally okay. I was going to say bubbling with enthusiasm, but I'm really not. I mean, I wish I was one of those people that are constantly turbo. That's what I call them. You know, constant energy.
Always on.
Kieran Kelly's one of those kind of people. I mean, you met one of my friends, Paul Coleman, who's constantly turbo.
He was definitely always on.
Yeah. Those people, I don't know. I'd assume those kind of people sleep in really late and, you know, don't have much of a social life because they're constantly, you know, talking to everybody until the other person falls asleep. But
well, you have
I don't
to
know.
be.
My friend Paul seems to make like tons of friends and seems to, you know, influence people all the time. So there has to be something to the vivacious spirit and personality.
Most definitely. It was an interesting conversation. I enjoyed it. Well, you have to be semi-enthused because I think something's happening tomorrow. I don't know, but something that you're involved with is happening tomorrow. Is it not?
Oh, we hope so.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I signed a licensing deal for these songs to be sent out to pitch to TV and radio and, and films and all that. And I just got an email just now sitting here as I was getting ready to call you saying that they did not receive the song Moonracer, which is interesting because a similar thing happened when we uploaded all the songs with my distribution company. For whatever reason, Yeshua would not upload to the server. And we're talking about the actual distribution server that's almost like fail-proof, you know. And so we had a certain person from TuneCore, a technical guru at TuneCore, trying to figure out why this particular song, Yeshua, or Yeshua, depending on how you want to pronounce that, would not upload to the server. And, you know, it's still mysterious. They couldn't figure it out. So they finally worked out the bug, but it took them like 2 days with my mastering engineer, everybody calling each other. So this album's been plagued by some weird little bugs here and there, but
do you think the forces that be don't want to see this album get out for one reason or another?
I don't know, but I just think we're turning our lives over to computers is what we're doing. I mean, I'm a fan of Westworld, but as I'm watching Westworld, I'm realizing this is the future. You know,
you are absolutely right. I don't think it's the future. I think we're there.
Yeah, we're there. The future is everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Everybody, you know, everybody will probably have their own radio station. And
well, it's, you know,
if
it's
they're
out
a
there.
musician, if they're a musician, like if you're Snoop Dogg, you should have your own station, and you should be playing your own music 24/7.
Exactly,
you know?
Exactly. You know,
but for now, Brad, this is an interesting idea, and I think that you know, other people should catch on, but let's maybe not. You know, it's kind of cool that it's not everybody is doing the same thing, which is great. So you have a foot in front of the competition, which I love.
Hey, you know, I'm an innovator. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Absolutely, way ahead of your time.
It's interesting you mentioned sending Moonracer. I mean, that definitely has a thematic. You know, it belongs in film. That song just belongs in a movie or some type of. It needs visuals, and I know we're getting the video tomorrow. I think, is that right?
The video is going to be is going to go live tomorrow. It's actually being premiered through a magazine called 1883, which is a British magazine, very famous, very up to speed style mag, which deals in fashion and music and entertainment. So if you go to 1883.com, you should probably see the magazine. But I'm not sure when the actual article goes live, but we have a backup just in case that doesn't happen. I've made sure that we'll be able to watch Moonracer tomorrow, and it will go out worldwide. So
fantastic. Well, we'll move on to some of these questions that people have for you, if you are game for that.
Absolutely, man.
This is coming from Leslie Thomas. It says, if a song were going to be pushed to radio from AWOL, which one would you most likely want it to be? And, of course, we're not talking CCM radio. So that is the question presented.
That's a great question. I mean, there's for me, it's a difficult process because there's a lot of different choices for me, because I love every one of these tunes. You really kind of have to narrow it down to what you think people would want to listen to and what kind of has a hook to it, and that's open to interpretation as well. That's subjective. So, oh man, I mean,
see, I can see the dilemma there as well, because I mean, it is what it is, but all of them have hooks.
Glory Boys. I mean, I know you played that one tonight. I think that one has a nice kind of upbeat feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics are a bit. I would say the lyrics are a bit more esoteric than some people are used to. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and what I listened to growing up, the lyrics were all over the map.
I mean, that's obviously what attracts me to your music most of the time, is just you can interpret it your own way. You don't have to be spoon-fed, and that's what I love.
Absolutely. So it's a good one. It's a good question. I think I'd probably go with either Prodigal or Glory Boys as a lead single, and then maybe as a second single, either Melissa or Half of the Better One, and third single I'd go with Moonracer, and fourth single maybe Yeshua.
I'll follow up with a follow-up question. Do you find, because obviously you're in the industry, do you find radio, well, how am I going to phrase this? Do you find it's a format that is even important today still?
Say it one more time, sorry.
I'm sorry. I said, do you find, I'm just following up on the radio question, do you find that radio is a format that's even important today still?
It is in different genres. It's very important. Obviously, in the Christian music genre, it is the thing that leads the way. I think without K-Love or WFM or Air One and whatnot, The Fish, all those kind of stations, you wouldn't have Christian music. And so it's that is a particular. I think the same thing as in pop music. General market pop. I would say the same thing in country. Rock and roll seems to be, dying on the radio, which is a horrible thing. But there's so many great XM stations that are taking, the place of these huge affiliates, and so now you go to XM radio, and you have a lot of choices there. And I'm actually a fan of XM radio. I
love it.
I haven't made it a mystery that I listen to First Wave, which is Channel 33. I listen to that all the time.
Yep.
So, I mean, for somebody like me that has grown up listening to classic alternative, that's what I listen to all the time on, when I'm in my studio or if I'm in my car. XM radio is the answer to all that. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Even Howard Stern's moving over to XM radio.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we will, this is from Joel, and you have to pardon me if I mispronounce your last name. I know you've told me numerous times, but Joel Waltermeyer. He is asking 20 years...
Is that how you say his last name?
I think.
I thought it was Walter Muir, like Ben Mears from Salem's Lot.
You might be right. I know he has told me how to pronounce it when I spoke to him, but yeah.
Walter Muir.
There it is.
Waltermeyer.
We'll go with Waltmeer. How about that? He says 20 years ago you were hot off the heels of the Jesus Freak tour, and in the studio spooling up to record Supernatural. You've released an insane amount of variety in your solo material since then. At that time, did you think you'd be where you are now? If you could go back 20 years, what advice would you give yourself as an artist and a person?
Okay, well, speaking scientifically, yes, I would hope that I would be where I am right now.
Right.
Which is you know, above ground with 4 children somewhere in the vicinity of Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, I wouldn't mind being in scene for Portugal or Italy. You know, a castle on a hill somewhere in Scotland would be nice.
Wouldn't that be nice?
But yeah, I mean, in an estimation of that answer, I would say yes. I mean, I knew that I would always be involved in music. I was one of those strange cases where, you know, I was singing at a young age. I tried to put a band together in high school, which you know, came crashing down around me. But in college, I actually was able to pull it off. And actually, before DC Talk, I was in a band called Justice for All, and I named the band Justice for All, which I think, you know, as a police officer should be kind of interesting to you. But
I was thinking Metallica. See, the police, they didn't go to my head.
It does kind of have a metal vibe to it. But we didn't do metal. It was, you know, it was a bit like what I do now, but, you know, not as polished. So, but we, you know, I was always involved in it, and I always found myself on some kind of a stage singing because I had a decent singing voice even as a younger kid. So people would always say, you know, yeah, push that Kevin Smith guy up on stage. He can sing, you know. And here I am. You know, I'm still doing it, you know, at 50 years old. And it's cool because you look back and you just think, man, I've been able to hold on to this thing for my life, you know.
You have. Yep.
And I think to answer another question that I saw, I think earlier I was looking over your stuff. Somebody said, you know, what do your kids think about your music? I mean, my kids, they love my music, and they got really spoiled from 2012 to 2014 when they were in the car hearing all the audio adrenaline songs on the radio and whatnot, because their mother listens to Christian hit radio. And I, you know, I don't, but she does, and when she would be driving with them, they get super excited to hear, you know, their dad singing Kings and Queens, or their dad singing On the Bridge of God's Not Dead, or, you know, some of these stations even play some of the old DC Talk hits, which is kind of cool. But then, you know, when they're in my car, I mean, they hear all the stuff that I love, and once in a while I'll put in one of my records. I mean, very rarely, but I have been putting in AWOL recently because I've got the CD and I'm listening to it. Just trying to think, is this a mistake that I let this out into the world? I mean, is this okay?
You actually think AWOL could have been a mistake? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I go through mood swings of, like, you know, this is genius, to, like, you know, crashingly depressive about it. You know, like, oh, I could have done so much better. I mean,
now that is absolutely fascinating as a creative person, how you could listen to that and not know that has value. That is.
Oh,
that's interesting insight.
Crashingly depressive over certain things, like, you know, for an example, I mean, Moonracer is a good example, because I wrote the song on a synth, and, you know, put the demo vocal down through my Shure microphone, and when it came to record it, I had my friend Tony Miracle make a program, which is what you're hearing right now on the record. It's Tony Miracle playing my demo, which was basically the same thing, but he did a little bit better version of it because he's a better keyboard player than I am, and a better producer. But I don't think it was finished, and we kind of rushed it. And I thought, well, I could have had some cowbell, could have had, you know, slinky Andy Rourke bass on it. It could have had a lot of things going on, but it is what it is, man. And you have to release it to the world, and I'm super excited that it's coming out, and hopefully be out streaming tonight around midnight. I mean, man, I'm an old man, so I'm falling asleep at like 1 a.m. these days, so I don't know if I'll be able to stay up to see it, you know.
I know I'll make it. I can't wait till we can stream it somewhere. That's going to be awesome. Of course, I've been playing it, you know, off and on, you know, since it got released.
I greatly appreciate that. I'm very honored that you do this, and I'm a fan that you've done, a fan of yours, and that you've gone ahead and done something like this is great. And I think that more artists, I'm sure, a lot of artists are jealous that, you know, have such great listeners, that they would go to the lengths that some of you guys have to push and support
Well, it's worth it. And, you know, AWOL, I don't know. I think that I got to go back. That's fascinating that you would wrestle with that. Because to me, I mean, I was talking about this earlier on the radio. I love playing games with the Shadow. But that one almost seems like it was a precursor to AWOL, which perfected what you started with playing games with the Shadow. I mean, AWOL's, I think it's one of your best albums. I really do. The Imposter has a special place in my heart, but if I'm just going to judge on just quality, yes, AWOL takes it, I have to say. So.
Yeah, Playing Games with the Shadow is an interesting record because that was a study in me just kind of putting stuff together without anybody around, and there's something about that that's really great. It's a purist art, where you can just kind of sit down and you write what you want. John Painter definitely added so much to that record because, I couldn't have played all the instruments that he did, and he made it amazing. But in the end, I don't know. They're both interesting to me in different ways. They're both flawed heavily in different ways, and they're also interesting. So.
I love it, and I'm excited about it. It's going to drop tomorrow, and we're going to move on to some questions some more. I'll try to squeeze these in because I know your time is limited. Let's see. If we were to turn on your Spotify right now, what 5 artists or songs would we see on your recently played list?
Oh, man. I'd have to go into my Spotify just to find that out. But most likely it would be, probably be something in the Echo and the Bunnymen. I remember I was listening to, I went back to their Ocean Rain record, which is
Yes.
a classic to me.
Yes.
And I remember I was just listening to that recently on Spotify. So that would probably be it. Before that, it was probably either David Bowie or the Smiths, and I might have been listening to some Ryan Adams.
Oh, nice.
I might have been, listening to some dad rock, looking up some Hall & Oates or Steely Dan. I don't know. I mean, but
and that probably ties into this next question. Do any of those have influenced AWOL? Sorry to interrupt you there, by the way.
No, it's okay. Have any of the? What do you mean?
Josiah Jones wants to know, what have you been listening to that has influenced AWOL the most?
I mean, when it comes to influences, it's like, man, who influenced me the most would have been Kieran Kelly, because he was sending me tracks, and I was going, okay, I like this one, I don't like that one. And then I would be influencing the track because I'm playing keyboards and coming up with stuff. I mean, as far as like outside influences, I mean, those are subconscious,
They really are.
Those are drilled into you. I mean, the songs that you grew up with, I'd say like some of the more almost kind of balladry of mid-1970s or really early 80s Bowie probably influenced Cornucopia. Some of the earlier, bands in the Manchester scene probably influenced some of the other songs like Glory Boys and things like that. Even bands like Japan and Depeche Mode and even Kraftwerk probably influenced stuff like Moonracer. So it's all the kind of things that you've grown up with listening to. And I've listened to so much music that it's hard to pinpoint. I talk about the Smiths incessantly, and I talk about Duran Duran incessantly, because those are the bands that I listened to throughout my high school years and couldn't get enough of. Like Meat is Murder was like probably my favorite record through high school, and then like Duran Duran Rio was a big one too, obviously, and then David Bowie, Let's Dance, and Scary Monsters and things like that. I mean, all of those were huge records growing up. And then even as a younger man, like the Beatles and ABBA, believe it or not, because that record was laying around in my parents' collection, and I was just like, I couldn't get enough of listening to that for some reason. So it all goes to influence you subconsciously, and you, as an artist, you just kind of take bits and pieces of that. It's like going fishing, in your own mind. You're like, okay.
Right.
But I think the best way to create is just to create, if you're an instrumentalist, which I am, I play the piano. The best way to create is just to sit down and start, noodling on the piano. And when you do that, ideas come about.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote "On Your Bike" on the piano.
Really?
It's probably one of the strangest songs I've ever written. And I really can't even explain what would have influenced that. But all the piano playing at the very beginning when I'm talking about who your favorite author is, Kevin Max.
Okay.
Playing the piano, and there's at least 5 to 6 minutes of that piano playing that Lynn Nichols, who was the producer on that, who some of you might know is the guitar player for Chicago Guevara and Steve Taylor and lots of other groups. But Uncle Lynn decided to, keep all that piano stuff that I was doing in the studio. I was just kind of messing around on the piano, and he kept it all. He recorded it all. And that's why we decided to throw that at the beginning of On Your Bike, which is interesting.
Awesome. Well, Brendan Gallagher wants to know who's your favorite Brendan.
And that is a question, only for Brendan Gallagher and I at another time.
Besides that,
I honestly don't know many Brendans, so it probably would be Brendan Gallagher.
I believe he's the only Brendan I know.
the Brendan, isn't there like an actor that was really horrible in the 90s named Brendan?
Oh, wait a minute. I think Joel just posted him. I can't remember his last name, but I'm seeing his face. But you're right. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And Brendan's following up with that. He wants to know which of the songs off AWOL do you find the most challenging to perform live? And I know you've had a chance to do that recently in New York.
I really haven't. I've only acoustic for Pace Magazine and City Winery and all that so far in New York City. I mean, we worked up Moonracer, we worked up Prodigal, we worked up half of the Better One. That's the only things that I've played live at all yet. So I would think that Glory Boys and Irish Blood Up, things like that would be kind of difficult to play without a really great band. I mean, whoever is in my band that plays bass has his work cut out for him.
Right. Yep. And you worked with some great ones, which
absolutely. John Marin, is a beast.
Yep.
He slays dragons with the bass, and then of course Sir Andy Rourke, who's is music royalty.
And
I'm very fortunate.
That brings up another question. How did that relationship with Andy come about for AWOL?
Well, that came about really through his management and through Kieran Kelly had a friend that knew Andy, and we reached out to his management, told him we were interested in having him come out to the sessions. He listened to the songs. He agreed to do it. Came out to the first sessions we did at the Buddy Project in New York, in Astoria, actually, in Astoria, Queens. And it was amazing. I mean, we sat down and hung out for a while before we started playing. We started, discussing stories on the road, and he wanted to know about my band. And, of course, I knew a lot about his band. Kieran had to split us up. He said, we got to get to work. And I remember Andy Rourke said, well, he's quite the taskmaster, we had a great session, really. I mean, Andy is a very natural bass player where he's very musical, so he's hearing lots of melodies while he's playing, and we really didn't have to edit him or retake him that much. I mean, he really kind of, I think we probably had 2 or 3 takes before we had, the actual recorded bass lines for those songs that he played. And those were Melissa, Yeshua, and half of the Better One. So the rest of the album is John Marin, and on a couple of tracks it's Kieran Kelly playing bass, but John Marin played on Glory Boys, John played on Irish Blood Up, on Youre. I mean, he's a beast.
It's amazing. Mark Rockwell, our good friend, has a question for you. He says, did the development of this album stretch you or grow your creative process? And is there anything new that you've learned that you take away from this project into the next?
That's a weird question.
Well, he's a weird dude.
I mean, it's just a strange question. It's so intense. Can you read that to me again? Because that's like, I don't even know where to begin with that.
He said, did the development of this album stretch you or grow your creative process in any way, in particular?
Me.
Or is there anything new you've learned that you'll take from this project creation into the next?
No. I didn't. I mean, this is my 13th studio album, man. I mean, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is just what I'm doing. And I really don't know what I'm going to do on the next project yet. I have an idea, because I'm always thinking about that. But honestly, I love Mark Rockwell. He knows I love him. So
we all love the Rockwell.
I think this record was is as natural of a Kevin Max record as there can be. Just as natural as Stereotype B, just as natural as Crashing Gates or The Imposter. I mean, this is really just me doing what I love to do. And so if I was able to do this again, with a great collaborator like Kieran or collaborator, come on, I can't say that word, like Andy Prickett from the Prayer Chain, who is my collaborator on The Imposter. Great things can happen, I just wrote a song with a guy named Micah Wilshire last 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And we came up with an amazing tune together, which is going to be pitched to TV and radio and film. And it just became really, really, it came about really quickly. The song was great. It's very natural. So honestly, for me, it's like who I team up with is, it kind of answers how the record's going to go,
Gotcha.
When I'm writing with Eric Cole, it's very, very, very natural. We come up with a lot of cool things together. Kieran and I were a great combination because we love the same kind of music. Kieran's very turbo, where I'm a little bit more laid back, so it's a good combination. I can only take so much of him talking, then I have to go make a coffee, slap myself over and over again to try to get the blood rushing to be able to deal with the barrage of constant communication.
Did you guys have any y'all got any B-sides or songs that didn't make the cut?
Oh man, yes.
Wow.
Lots of tunes. I mean, I'd say another full album of songs that we didn't use for this record.
Oh, wow.
There's a song called King of Misunderstanding, which was like a front runner to be on this album, but it just stylistically it was a bit different. It was a little too much like the Beatles, John Lennon thing. I wrote a song called Stressed. I'm Stressed, I think was the name of the song, with an exclamation point, which is it's basically the story of my life. I'm stressed. And it's a great song, but it was just a little too rock and roll, a little too dirty rock for this album. It felt like it should be on like a Replacements record or something. It just didn't fit the vibe of AWOL. I mean, and that's why, originally AWOL was called We Are the Sons. It's one of the only real true rock and roll songs on the record. But we let that one pass because it just kind of had that anthemic overall idea to what we wanted to say on this project, which was marching against formula.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say I'd like to hear that song at some point. That sounds amazing. I'd like to hear Kevin Max do some dirty rock.
There's several. I mean, we were going to cover the 77's Ba 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 Ba, and I have that laying around without a vocal, but it's there as a musical track. And let me me see. I'll open up this file right here. I can tell you. King of Misunderstanding. That would have been on this album. Arms of Orion, which is kind of like a sci-fi Duran Duran song. We had a song called The Resounding No, which was like the Beach Boys meets R.E.M. And Mark Rockwell would have loved that one, but that might be for another record. And there's Wilder, Are You Okay, which I put up on my sound.
Oh, I remember that one. Yes.
For a while, I was very Beatles. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard because there's so many, ideas, and I have a whole record called Melodrama that I wrote at the Blind Thief Farm. That's just kind of ready to have somebody like a John Payne or a Kieran Kelly or a Daniel Lanois to come in and just go, okay, I love all these songs. Let's make them. So if you know a producer that loves kind of psychedelic 60s rock stuff, send them my way, because I got a whole record ready to be made. But I honestly think the next record's going to be more pop and more down the line, because Daddy needs to make a living.
Got to put food on the table.
Daddy needs to feed the kids.
Yes, we all understand that.
Daddy needs to pay the bills. I got to pay for these speeding tickets through Virginia that constantly hound me. Texas for not putting my seatbelt on in a 12-passenger van.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding, man.
Seriously.
Female officer put her head in the van. I was towards the back. She said, "Sir, do you have a seatbelt on?" And I said, "Well, I did." I was kind of lying. I hadn't had and I was given a citation for not having my seatbelt on.
Wow.
In the wonderful state of Texas, in a 12-passenger van.
Wow. I will refrain from commenting on that.
I mean, I just wonder, how bored people are. But then again, I understand it's a job, and people have to, they have to report back and say, yeah, I got this, and I did this, and it's, and I guess you get, do you get, little gold stars when things like that happen?
No,
so
that's what's fascinating is,
of gold stars? Oh,
you don't,
no.
I don't know about Texas, but yeah, that's what's fascinating is that would be the end of it. Hey, sir, can you buckle your seatbelt up and we'll all have a good night? No, we don't have anything like that.
Yeah, you would be the coolest, you would be the coolest officer to
I wish they all felt that way.
But yeah, I mean, everybody has a bad day. So, anyways, back when I was single and I had a motorcycle, and that's all I had, I was pulled over on my old Harley, and it was a female officer, and I tried to get her phone number, which was horrible. But
did it work?
She was laughing and she thought it was sweet and everything, but she still gave me a citation.
Did she write a number on the citation? That's the question.
No.
No.
And man, I was looking like, I don't know how to describe what I looked like at that moment. Ever seen the movie with Val Kilmer, where he's got the long hair and he's always spouting poetry? I think it's called The Saint. It's The Saint.
Yes.
I had the Saint vibe going on. My hair was really long. I was wearing, really cool, traveler clothes. And looked like a golden god. But she could care less.
Wow. Yeah. Did she know who you are, though?
No. I have been stopped by people that recognize me for sure. And I was cuffed and put in the back of a car, and they totally recognized me. Totally knew me.
Wait a minute.
And he felt bad about it.
You were cuffed? You were cuffed and put in the back of a patrol car?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
For not paying tickets around town.
Okay, yep. I got you. Well,
again, this is a long time ago. Really long time ago. But people were giving, everybody was having fun with those mug shots with rock and roll artists over time. And I can't remember if I had one taken or not, but I probably didn't, just because it was like parking citations that were unpaid. I don't know when they actually snapped your picture. I don't understand that.
Depends on the state. So
yeah, it's a state thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I know it was fingerprinted, so there's that.
Oh, if you were fingerprinted, then you probably did get a picture taken.
I probably did get a picture taken.
You probably did.
You know what?
But
I was just a young, irresponsible person not taking care of tickets, and I've learned the hard way now that when I get pulled over, like in Virginia, I wait a year, then I take care of it.
And always buckle your seatbelt.
Always. Well, no, seriously, always buckle your seatbelt. I always wear my seatbelt when I'm driving or I'm in a regular car, but I was in a 12-passenger van.
Who buckles up in a van? That's what I want to know.
In the back seat when you're sleeping.
Yeah, no. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you past your time, so you let me know if you're running low on time or.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the magic hour for me to, slink off to the living room and watch something really good on TV and hang out with the wife.
I completely understand.
So we are very traditional. Kids go upstairs, they watch a movie, and then they kind of go to bed around 9:30, and we watch a movie and we go to bed around 11 or so. And then you want to hear what I do in the morning? I get up really early because I'm 50. I'm waking up at like 5:30 a.m. these days.
No.
And I'm making coffee at like 5:30. It's really loud grinding sounds from the kitchen, waking everyone up.
That's extremely rock and roll right there.
So rock and roll.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. I really do. I know everybody else appreciates it as well.
Well, dude, you're my favorite DJ. This is my favorite station. How could I not? I'm drawn like a moth to the flame. And thank you to everybody listening. I'm really excited about what's going to happen tomorrow. Hopefully, there won't be any more internet bugs, and it will actually go to Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Music tomorrow. So it might not happen this evening. It might be a little bit later into the day tomorrow. It just depends. It's the way things go. But thank you everyone that supported it. That was on Pledge campaign at the very beginning, which basically catapulted the whole thing. If you've noticed that Greg Carnes has been, taking pictures of the
I did see that today.
Of the icon shirts that came in, the AWOL icon shirt. These are done. They're going to start being delivered soon. The CDs are done. I'm signing them. They're being delivered soon. The thing that we have to wait for is vinyl, and that's just the way it goes.
Yep.
I mean, this is still a 6-week process of waiting for vinyl.
Wow.
So, yep.
Can't wait to get it. That's all I know.
Well, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
And I promise to buckle up, and until we see each other again, peace, love, and rock and roll.
Absolutely. Have a good night, sir.
Thank you, sir.